Let me start with something we don't talk about enough, but should. Not because it's dramatic or sensational, but because it's quietly heartbreaking. Because it affects more older adults than you think. And because staying silent about it causes more damage than the problem itself. I'm talking about body odor in seniors. Now, before you scroll away or shift uncomfortably, hear me out. This isn't about hygiene. It's about something deeper, something that steals confidence, causes unspoken shame, and slowly drives a wedge between people and the ones they love. I chose to talk about this topic because I've seen what it does. I've heard too many stories from kind, caring, clean individuals who suddenly feel rejected, avoided, or isolated, and they don't know why. They notice the subtle signs first. Grandkids choosing to sit on the other couch. Friends not hugging quite as warmly. Someone offering them gum or perfume a little too quickly. And worst of all, no one says anything. They're left to wonder, overthink, and eventually withdraw. Not just from people, but from life. That's why this video is so important. Because the truth is, body odor in older age isn't a sign of neglect. It's often a sign of something else going on in the body. And more importantly, it's fixable. But only if we're willing to talk about it. With honesty. With compassion. Without shame. So today, I want to share with you a real story. A story about a woman in her 60s who went through this exact journey. How she went from feeling invisible and broken to being reconnected, joyful, and confident again. And through her story, we'll talk about why this happens, what you can do about it, and how something so small can quietly transform your entire life and relationships. This isn't just about body odor. It's about dignity. It's about belonging. It's about not losing yourself just because your body is changing. And if you've ever felt pushed aside, misunderstood, or embarrassed by something no one talks about, this story is for you. I remember a story shared with me not long ago by Dr. Davis, a close friend of mine who's been practicing medicine in Texas for over 3 decades. He once told me about a woman in her early 60s who came to see him with tears in her eyes. Her name was Linda. At first glance, Linda seemed like any other older woman, quiet, polite, well-groomed. But as she sat across from Dr. Davis in his office, she leaned in and said in a barely audible voice, "People don't want to be around me anymore. Not my grandkids, not my neighbors, not even my church group." Dr. Davis asked her to explain, and what came next was something many people her age may silently struggle with, but rarely talk about. Linda believed she had a persistent body odor, and no matter how much she bathed, cleaned, or changed her clothes, the smell wouldn't go away. "My grandchildren used to run to hug me," she said. "Now they squirm or avoid sitting too close. My friends have stopped inviting me to gatherings. And my daughter, well, she always seems to have an excuse not to visit." For a long time, Linda isolated herself. She stopped attending family dinners, skipped church on Sundays, and rarely left the house unless absolutely necessary. She felt ashamed, confused, and deeply lonely. Her confidence shrank. Her world became smaller and smaller until it was just her and the silence of her living room. Dr. Davis listened carefully, not just to her words, but to the pain behind them. He knew that body odor in older adults can sometimes stem from more than hygiene. It can be linked to hormonal shifts, diet, medication, skin changes, or even underlying health conditions like diabetes or kidney issues. In Linda's case, a combination of hormonal imbalance and an undiagnosed liver sensitivity was contributing to the problem. But more importantly, no one had ever told her this was common or treatable. After running some tests and going over her daily routines, Dr. Davis helped Linda make a few simple but life-changing adjustments. He reviewed her medications, recommended changes to her diet, cutting back on processed foods and increasing her intake of greens and water, and introduced a gentle, pH-balanced skin cleanser that wouldn't irritate her aging skin. Within a few weeks, Linda started noticing a difference, not just in how she smelled, but in how she felt. She walked into his office 3 weeks later with a lightness in her step. "My grandson gave me a hug yesterday," she beamed. "He didn't pull away. He even sat next to me during dinner." Dr. Davis smiled and reminded her of something important. When we understand what's happening in our bodies, we take back control. You're not the problem. Your body just needed a little help. Linda's story didn't just stop at personal hygiene. What truly shifted was her mindset. After finally understanding what was going on inside her body, she felt seen. And once that shame started lifting, her entire energy changed. She began to show up again, not just physically, but emotionally. She started baking for the grandchildren again. "They always loved my cinnamon bread," she said with a soft laugh. "So I made 2 loaves last week, one for my daughter's family, and one just for the church potluck." That was the first time she'd stepped into her church kitchen in almost 8 months. The pastor's wife hugged her and said, "We've missed you, Linda." And just like that, the invisible wall between her and the world started to crumble. Dr. Davis and I often talk about how many people like Linda are out there. Seniors who quietly carry shame for things they don't fully understand. Whether it's body odor, incontinence, hearing loss, or emotional withdrawal. These issues aren't just physical. They affect how people feel about themselves. They start to believe they're a burden, or worse, that they've somehow failed at aging. But that's just not true. Aging doesn't mean disappearing. It doesn't mean retreating from life. It simply means your body is asking for a different kind of care, a gentler kind of attention. And once you recognize that, you can take steps toward healing, physically, emotionally, and socially. Dr. Davis said something powerful to me once. Older people aren't fragile. They're just carrying more layers. More history, more aches, more love, more grief. And if we help them peel back those layers with compassion, they shine again. And Linda, she began to shine. Her story reached some of her old friends, who had noticed her absence and were surprised to learn the reason behind it. One of them, Margaret, even admitted she had the same issue, but was too embarrassed to bring it up. Linda shared Dr. Davis's tips with her. Everything from diet suggestions to fragrance-free body wash to the importance of using cotton fabrics in warm climates. "I didn't realize how much my synthetic clothes were trapping odors," Margaret said later. These weren't expensive solutions. They were simple, doable, and most importantly, rooted in understanding rather than judgment. That made all the difference. But what struck me most was how Linda's emotional world began to reopen. When she started to feel more comfortable in her own skin, literally, she reconnected with people. Her confidence returned. She joined a local senior storytelling group. She called her sister, whom she hadn't spoken to in over a year. And every Sunday after church, she now stays an extra hour just to chat and laugh with others. If you've ever felt like the people around you are slowly pulling away, like there's an invisible wall growing between you and the ones you love, then Linda's story probably hits close to home. Because the truth is, what she went through wasn't just about a medical issue. It was about dignity, about love, and about the fear of becoming irrelevant. Linda told Dr. Davis, "I started to feel like I was rotting from the inside out. Not just my body, but my spirit." That's a heartbreaking thing to hear, but it's something far too many seniors silently endure. They notice their phone doesn't ring as often. Family visits get shorter. Conversations feel awkward. The warmth that once filled the room when grandchildren came running into their arms, it fades. And in its place is a strange, painful silence. We don't talk about that silence enough. About the loneliness that creeps in not because someone lives alone, but because even when others are around, they feel invisible. Like they're being tolerated, not cherished. Like they're part of the background, not the moment. Linda said there was a moment, just one, that finally broke her. She'd been sitting on the couch, waiting for her daughter and grandkids to come by for a Sunday visit. She'd made cookies, set the table, even sprayed her perfume. But when they arrived, her granddaughter wrinkled her nose, whispered something into her mother's ear, and the whole visit lasted less than 10 minutes. No one sat close. No one hugged her goodbye. After they left, Linda sat in the quiet for hours. "I started wondering," she said, "what's the point of me being here if I make everyone uncomfortable?" That is the kind of thought no one should ever have to entertain. But aging, for many, becomes a series of these moments. Little heartbreaks that add up until someone begins to disappear into themselves. They start to cancel plans. They stay in bed longer. They don't bother dressing up. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of interest. It's grief. Grief for the version of themselves that used to feel connected, welcomed, and loved. This is why Linda's story matters, because it reminds us that many struggles we assume are just part of getting old are actually signals. Signals that something deeper needs attention. Not just a medical checkup, but an emotional lifeline, compassion, clarity, and the kind of guidance that reminds people they're not alone and they're not broken. And the saddest part? Most people never reach out. Like Linda, they suffer in silence, too embarrassed or ashamed to speak up. Some feel like it's their fault, that maybe they did something wrong to deserve this distance. Others convince themselves they're being dramatic and choose to just live with it. But you don't have to live like that. Not now. Not ever. So, what actually helped Linda turn things around? It wasn't one big miracle. It was a series of small, practical, and compassionate changes. Changes that anyone in her shoes could try. And if you or someone you love has been silently going through something similar, here's what might help. First, it began with understanding. Dr. Davis didn't dismiss Linda's concern or chalk it up to age. He listened. That in itself was healing. So many seniors are used to having their concerns brushed aside. Oh, that's normal at your age. Or, you're just being sensitive. But when someone finally says, let's look into this together, it's like opening a window in a stuffy room. Relief rushes in. He started by explaining that as we age, our skin changes. Hormonal shifts, especially after menopause, can alter how our sweat smells. And our bodies might not detox the same way they used to, meaning odors can linger longer. Add to that certain medications, slower digestion, synthetic clothing, or even an undiagnosed condition like liver or kidney issues, and it's easy to see how things can become complicated. But again, none of this is your fault. It's your body asking for a different kind of care. So the first thing Dr. Davis did was review her medications. Some drugs can interfere with how the body processes toxins, making sweat smell stronger or different. In Linda's case, a mild change in dosage, approved by her specialist, made a big difference within weeks. Next came nutrition. Linda had always been proud of her home-cooked meals, but Dr. Davis gently pointed out that some of her choices, lots of processed meats, cheeses, and low-fiber options, might be making things worse. Together, they worked out a simple shift. More leafy greens, more water, less red meat, and adding in things like parsley, cucumber, and lemon water, all natural detoxifiers. These changes weren't about going on a diet. They were about supporting her body's natural ability to cleanse itself from the inside. Then came something she'd never considered: her clothes. Dr. Davis suggested she try wearing more natural fabrics like cotton and bamboo, especially in warmer weather. These materials breathe better and don't trap odor the way synthetic fabrics can. He also recommended changing into fresh clothes midday if needed, especially after a walk or a light activity. That little act alone helped her feel refreshed and confident. Now let's talk skincare. Linda had been using the same soap for over 20 years, a heavily fragranced bar that actually dried out her skin and caused irritation. Dr. Davis suggested switching to a gentle, pH-balanced cleanser made for sensitive, mature skin. Nothing fancy or expensive, just something kind to her body's changing needs. Within a few days, she noticed her skin felt calmer. Within 2 weeks, she noticed less odor. And one more thing that made a world of difference: probiotics. After reviewing her gut health, Dr. Davis recommended a mild daily probiotic to support her digestive system. You might be wondering, what does that have to do with smell? Well, when your gut flora is out of balance, it can affect how your body breaks down food, which can lead to unwanted odors. Supporting gut health supports the whole body. But perhaps the biggest shift came from how Linda began to carry herself again. Because when you feel clean, fresh, and understood, you walk into a room differently. And that difference changes everything. She told me, it wasn't just that the smell got better. It was that I stopped feeling like something was wrong with me. I stopped hiding. And that's what we all deserve, especially as we grow older. To live without shame, without fear, and without the invisible distance that keeps us from the people we love. If you're watching this and any part of Linda's story sounds familiar, I want you to know, you're not alone. Maybe you've noticed your family keeping a bit of distance. Maybe you've caught a strange look or overheard a comment. Maybe you've started avoiding hugs or long visits because you just don't feel confident anymore. You don't have to accept that as your new normal. Here are a few simple, empowering steps you can start with. Talk to your doctor. Don't be embarrassed. A good physician will take your concerns seriously. Ask about your medications, your liver and kidney function, and any possible causes for persistent odor. It's not just hygiene, it's health. Hydrate and eat clean. Water helps your body flush out toxins. Greens and herbs like parsley, cilantro, and mint help naturally freshen your body from the inside. Reduce foods that are known to cause odor, like garlic, onions, or heavily processed meats, at least for a while. Reassess your hygiene products. Use gentle, non-drying cleansers. Try fragrance-free deodorants made for sensitive skin. And if you use body sprays, choose light, natural scents, or essential oils in moderation. Wear breathable clothing. Go for cotton or linen, especially in warmer months. Wash clothes with baking soda or vinegar occasionally to remove deep-seated smells that detergent alone might miss. Keep your confidence. You are not defined by a temporary issue. If something's off, there's almost always a fix, and more importantly, there's nothing wrong with needing help. Linda's journey reminds us that healing is possible at any age, not just physically, but emotionally too. And no matter how long you felt cut off or withdrawn, it's never too late to reconnect. She now volunteers at a senior center, welcoming new members with a hug. She laughs more, dresses up again, and even started mentoring others going through the same things she once did. She went from someone who felt ashamed to someone who helps others heal. That's what growth in your later years can look like. That's what strength looks like. And that's what Forever Strong Seniors is all about. We're here to give voice to stories like Linda's, to open up conversations that no one else wants to have, and to remind you that aging doesn't mean fading. It means evolving with wisdom, with compassion, and with joy. So now it's your turn. Have you ever experienced something like Linda? Or do you know someone who has? Let's talk about it. Leave a comment below. I read every one. You never know who you might help just by sharing. And if this story touched you, make sure you check out the rest of our videos here on Forever Strong Seniors. We cover everything from health tips to emotional resilience to building stronger family bonds after 60. You deserve to feel confident, connected, and cared for. You're not alone, and you never were.